Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take fascinating sources, pull out the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to getting up to speed on complex topics. Today we're looking at something, well, deeply sensitive, actually. It's about the possibility of communicating with loved ones after they've passed, specifically focusing on those lost to suicide and how, from a certain perspective, we might offer support.
Yeah, and the material we're diving into today, it comes from someone with decades of direct experience in this very specific, unusual area. It makes some pretty surprising claims, offers some very practical advice too, drawing on both traditional ideas and, their own observations.
Right.
And just to be clear up front, our goal here isn't to say this is true or this isn't. It's really about exploring the claims, the methods described, laying out the information for you, the listener, to think about.
Absolutely. So yeah, get ready. We're going to talk about this claimed window for communication, specific meditations for helping, and crucially, for protection. And even these reported stages that people apparently go through after suicide, it's definitely a journey into territory most of us don't often think about. Okay, so let's start with this first big idea, this concept that for about 3 weeks after someone dies, there's a higher chance of psychic communication, like a window.
That's the claim, yeah,
Yeah.
a distinct window. And the reasoning behind it, according to the source, is pretty interesting. The idea is that during those first few weeks, the person's energetic patterns, basically their consciousness, feelings, thoughts are still kind of close, still connected to our reality.
So the physical body is gone, but the rest lingers for a bit.
Exactly, lingers nearby. But after about 3 weeks, give or take, these non-physical parts reportedly start to dissolve or fade. They move out of range of our normal experience.
Out of range. Okay. So this 3-week period is seen as this kind of unique opportunity, energetically speaking. But the source also says that connecting with someone who died by suicide is, well, you mentioned a little bit different. What's the difference there, and how does that lead to the support practices?
Right, yeah, a little bit different. The material suggests that the energetic signature, let's call it, of someone who died by suicide often carries a lot more intense, unresolved emotional energy, pain, confusion, maybe anger.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense.
And that distinction is key because it leads directly into why certain specific practices are recommended for offering help in those situations.
Which brings us to the practices themselves. You mentioned a Tibetan meditation, Tonglen.
Donglen, yes. It's a core practice in certain Buddhist traditions. And basically, it's a practice of compassion, of empathetic exchange. You intentionally breathe in the suffering, the negativity, the pain that you perceive the other person might be experiencing.
Wow, okay. Breathing in the bad stuff.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But then, as you breathe out, you consciously send back feelings of peace, calm, clarity, what the source calls neutrality, like an energetic offering of relief. And interestingly, the source mentions a foundational practice you kind of need first, called shamatha vipassana.
Shamatha Vipassana.
Yeah, it's a basic mindfulness meditation, but with a strong focus on the out-breath. The idea is you build up this capacity, like a muscle, to neutralize negativity by really investing your focus in that calming, releasing out-breath.
Yeah.
That prepares you to handle the intensity of Tonglen without getting overwhelmed yourself.
I see. So you build this neutralizing muscle first.
Right.
Then, for someone who died by suicide, you focus on them, use Tonglen to breathe in their perceived negativity, and breathe out that cultivated neutrality to them.
That's the essence of it, yes. Actively trying to transform or soothe that energy.
Okay, but that immediately raises a huge question. If you're intentionally engaging with that kind of intense, potentially negative energy, protection seems vital, right? How do you protect yourself while trying to help?
Absolutely crucial, yes. And the source addresses this directly. They developed a specific meditation practice, something they call the soul kernel practice. It's described as a core technique they discovered.
Soul kernel. Okay, how does that work?
Well, it's quite detailed. First, you place your awareness, your mind, in what's called the dantian.
Dantian, that's like the energetic center.
Exactly. From Chinese traditions, mostly.
Yeah.
Located physically about 3 fingers width below your navel, and then 3 fingers deep inside. Your center of gravity, energetically speaking. And instead of focusing on breath, here you focus on feeling your pulse in that spot. The source describes the pulse as a more emotionally grounding anchor than the breath for this practice.
Interesting. Feel the pulse in the dantian. Okay, then what?
Then you visualize a 6-pointed star, the Star of David or Seal of Solomon right there in your dantian.
Visualize the star. Okay.
And then, using the rhythm of your pulse, you mentally trace the outline of the star. You move your focus around the 6 sides of the 2 interlaced triangles. So like the bottom edge of the upward triangle, then its right side, then its left side. Then the bottom edge of the downward triangle, its right side, its left side, following your pulse.
Following the pulse around the points of the star visualization.
Right. And while you're doing this visualization and movement, you gently chant internally the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum, the Hindu mantra.
Yeah, often associated with Tibetan Buddhism too. It translates roughly as the jewel is in the lotus, or more poetically, the whole universe is found within the center of our being.
Wow. So how does this combination, Dantine focus, pulse, star visualization, mantra, actually provide protection, according to the source?
Well, the thinking is multifaceted. The 6-pointed star itself is a very old symbol of balance. The upward triangle representing sort of evolution or reaching up.
Right.
The downward triangle representing involution or spirit grounding into matter. Perfect balance.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Balance.
So visualizing that symbol of balance, combined with grounding yourself deeply in your physical core via the pulse, and then adding the vibrational quality of the mantra, all this together is said to create a really stable, coherent, and protective energetic field around you, shielding you.
Makes sense from that symbolic perspective. Grounding and balancing. Okay.
Now, another really startling thing the source shares is their observation over time. They noticed that individuals who had died by suicide seemed to go through very distinct stages after passing.
Stages, like stages of grief, but after death, from their perspective.
Sort of, yeah. But specific to this context, it wasn't just random confusion. There was a pattern they observed.
Fascinating. Can you walk us through those stages? What did they observe?
Sure. So the first stage they identified was stage 1. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just deep regret. Sometimes for specific things, like they mentioned one person regretting leaving their dog, another regretting being a negative influence in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Initial remorse.
But then it apparently shifted into stage 2, arrogance, which sounds odd, but it was described as this feeling of like, phew, I got out of that situation. I escaped the pain. That kind of misplaced relief or, arrogance about escaping.
Huh. Arrogance. That's unexpected.
Yeah. And then, according to the source, it got more difficult. Stage 3, maliciousness. This stage apparently felt actively negative, even harmful, to the point where the practitioner felt their own protection was being really tested.
Wow. Maliciousness. So like lashing out.
That's the implication. It was concerning enough that they actually involved a prayer group at this point, consciously sending focused forgiveness towards the individual. And interestingly, they reported that this intervention seemed to shift the energy.
So the forgiveness helped break that cycle.
Apparently so, which then led into stage 4, regret and sorrow. But this was different from the initial sorry stage. This seemed like a much deeper, more realistic processing of their life, their choices, the actual impact of their actions. True remorse, maybe.
Okay, a more profound reckoning.
Exactly. And finally, stage 5, evening out. This was described as a kind of sober realization, understanding what they'd done, the consequences, and beginning to look towards, towards what might be next. The source believes in reincarnation, so it was about where they might be heading in their next life.
A very detailed and frankly intense progression.
It really is.
And this whole journey, these stages, seem to underpin the source's very strong stance that suicide is, as they put it, not an answer or a solution. Why do they argue that so strongly?
Well, the reasons given from this perspective are quite significant. First, they believe that after death, individuals actually have far less power to help themselves than they did when alive.
Less power, how so?
Because they've lost the physical tools, the body, the breath, which helps focus the mind, the ability to generate physical energy, willpower in the same way. All that's left are these dissolving emotional and mental energies. They can't act in the same way.
Okay. They lose their agency in a sense.
In a very practical sense, yes. And maybe even more importantly, from this viewpoint, the underlying issues, the karma they were trying to escape.
Right.
It's not gone. In fact, the belief presented is that the act of suicide actually compounds that karma, making it even more difficult to face in the future of their incarnations. So it doesn't solve the problem, it postpones and potentially intensifies it.
Right. So no escape, just delayed and amplified from that perspective.
That's the idea presented, yes.
Okay, so if communication is possible in that 3-week window, and you're protected and you want to help, this brings us to another key part, asking specific questions. Not just chatting, but questions designed to guide the person, create a trajectory.
Exactly. Trajectory is the word the source uses. The idea is that before those emotional and mental bodies fully dissolve, you can potentially help the person orient themselves, process things, and maybe even consciously choose a more positive direction for whatever comes next, like their next life.
Helping them set an intention almost.
Yeah, something like that. Helping them navigate out of the immediate trauma and confusion towards a more constructive path.
So what are some of these guiding questions that you, the listener, might, consider if exploring this?
Well, the first one suggested is pretty straightforward. Where are you now? What is it like? Just to get a sense of their current state. They might be confused, disoriented.
Big disorientation.
Then getting into the processing. What do you regret? But also, crucially, balancing that with what are you grateful for? To help shift focus towards the positive, even small things.
Regret and gratitude. Makes sense. What else?
How would you do things differently? Encouraging reflection. And then a really important one. Where are you going? Where do you want to go from here? This is about that trajectory.
Right, the trajectory.
Yeah.
Is there an example of that?
Yeah. The source gives this example of their own father, who'd been a machinist, good with his hands, but perhaps in a rough way sometimes. And reportedly, after passing, he expressed wanting to become a surgeon in his next life, to use his hands again, but in a more refined, healing, helpful way. So that question helped him crystallize that intention.
Choosing a direction. Okay. What other questions?
Also, what do you love about yourself? To foster self-compassion? And significantly, are there any messages?
Messages, like from them to us, or?
Both, potentially. Messages they might be receiving perhaps from guides or other beings, depending on the belief system, and also messages they want to pass on to people still living.
Okay, opening that channel.
And finally, a more philosophical one. In the light of wholeness, where are you or this experience in the puzzle of your wholeness? Trying to get a bigger picture perspective beyond the immediate trauma.
Putting it in context of their larger soul journey, perhaps.
Exactly. Helping them see it as a part of a larger whole. And as you said, helping to create that positive trajectory is presented as a really key compassionate motivation for attempting this kind of communication.
This has been, well, a really deep dive. True to our name, we've covered a lot. This idea of a 3-week communication window, especially after suicide. The specific practices like Tonglen for helping, and the soul kernel meditation for protection, which is fascinating in itself.
Yeah, and those reported stages from sorry to arrogance, maliciousness, then deeper regret, and finally evening out. Quite a map.
Definitely. And then these guiding questions, designed not just to connect, but to actively help shape a positive path forward before that energetic connection fades.
Mm-hmm. And the implications, when you step back, are pretty profound, aren't they? The possibility that connection doesn't just end, that compassion can be active, can be energetic, even after death. And it highlights the weight of choices, the challenges of different paths. These practices aren't just passive thoughts. They're presented as structured ways to potentially intervene energetically.
It really leaves you thinking. If consciousness or some aspect of it does persist beyond the physical body, as this material strongly suggests, what does that truly imply about how we understand the choices we make in this life? And what does it suggest about the potential for support, for connection, continuing in ways we don't normally even consider? It's definitely something to ponder.